So, with AI search completely changing the game, there's one topic that has suddenly become absolutely critical, and that's schema markup. We're going to blow past the basics today and really get into what it takes to make your content not just visible, but truly understood by the AI systems that are reshaping how we find everything.
So I've got a question for you right off the bat. Is your website speaking AI's language? Because, these days, if it's not, you're not just missing out on a few fancy search results, you're risking being completely misunderstood by the whole next generation of search.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. For years, the advice was just so simple, right? Just install an SEO plugin, flip a switch, and you're good to go. But as this makes crystal clear, that's just not going to cut it anymore. We're here to explain why, and more importantly, what to do about it.
All right, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we're going to talk about how AI is fundamentally changing search. Then, we'll break down the two critical layers of schema. We'll dig into why your plugin is only a starting point, and then I'm going to give you a 4-step plan to take back control. And we'll finish up with some really high-impact manual schemas you can use right away, and how to measure success while avoiding some common mistakes.
All right, first up, AI search is changing. So why is structured data all of a sudden so critical? Well, the simple answer is that search engines aren't just indexing machines anymore. They're now operating as inference engines. I mean, they're trying to understand and synthesize information, not just give you a list of links.
Okay, so what is schema really? The easiest way to think about it is like a hidden data layer just underneath your content. It's a standard vocabulary that you use to explicitly tell machines what something is. Like, hey, this is an article. This person is the author. Or this is the company, how it all relates, and why it matters. It just takes all the guesswork out of it for the machine.
And that is why this is such a huge deal for AI. You're defining things explicitly, so the AI doesn't have to guess. You're cutting down on ambiguity, you're lining up your content with these massive knowledge graphs that already exist, and you're making every single piece of your page readable by a machine.
Okay, let's move on and see how this all builds up. See, there are really two distinct layers of schema, and getting this difference is absolutely key. We're talking about moving from the basic foundation to where the real impact actually happens.
And you've got to get this distinction. It's so important. On one side, you have site-level schema. Think of this as the foundation of your house. It answers the simple question, who owns this site, and builds that initial trust. But on the other side, you've got element-level schema. This is where the magic happens. It answers what is happening inside this page. And honestly, this is where most people drop the ball.
Which, leads us perfectly into our next point, why your plugin just isn't enough. It's time we talked about the very real limits of just letting a machine do all the work.
Look, here's the bottom line. Your SEO plugin, it's great. It's fantastic for getting that basic, foundational, site-level stuff done. It sets up your company info, your logo, your basic identity. But that's its job. It's your starting point, not your final destination.
And if you only rely on that plugin, you run into some big problems. First, it just generalizes everything. It treats every single blog post like it's the same. Second, you miss out on huge semantic opportunities. The plugin doesn't know you have this amazing Q&A section or a detailed step-by-step guide. And finally, it has zero ability to tell the AI what the different parts inside your content are actually for.
Okay, enough about the problem, right? Let's talk solutions. Let's move on to an actual framework you can use for building better schema that goes way beyond the defaults.
And the process here is actually pretty straightforward, just 4 steps. First, always audit what you've already got. You might be surprised what's already there. Sometimes you find duplicate or conflicting stuff. Second, use your plugin to lock down that foundational site-level schema. Get it right once. Third, be intentional about your basic page type schemas. And fourth, and this is the most important step, start adding that element-level schema by hand.
And that brings us to the fun part, high-impact manual schema. I'm telling you, this is where you can really start to pull away from the competition and make your content just incredibly clear to AI. Let's take a super common and really high-impact example, FAQ schema. This is perfect for any page that has a question and answer section. The rule of thumb here is super simple. If you have a Q&A section that a real person can see on the page, then you should probably be using FAQ schema. And the keyword there is visible. You can't just slap this on content that isn't actually formatted as questions and answers.
Okay, don't let the code scare you off. You really don't need to understand all of it. The only part you need to grasp is this little line right here. That one line is just a flag you're holding up for the machine, saying, hey, the content right here is a set of frequently asked questions. It's that simple.
And hey, FAQ schema is just scratching the surface. You can use author schema to build up credibility, how-to schema for your step-by-step guides, video object for any videos you embed, and even speakable schema to tell AI assistants like Alexa or Siri which parts of your text are the best to read aloud.
All right, last section. Let's wrap this up by talking about how you actually measure success and avoid some common pitfalls. How do you know if any of this is actually working, and how do you keep it all clean?
First things first, you gotta be patient. After you roll out these changes, give it at least 4 to 6 weeks. Seriously. Search engines need time to come back and recrawl your site, process all this new data, and update how they think about your content.
Now, what's really important to get is that the impact here is often indirect. You're not looking for some magic ranking jump. Instead, you're going to go into Google Search Console and track things like impressions for rich results. You're going to look for changes in your click-through rates. And for AI search, well, you'll need to manually keep an eye on how often your stuff gets cited as a source.
And please try to avoid these common slip-ups. We see them all the time. The biggest ones are having duplicate entities, like when two plugins are both trying to add organization schema or using schema for content that isn't even visible on the page. And of course, the big mistake we started with, just rely on 100% on your plugin and never going any deeper.
So if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. That high-level foundational schema, that's what gets your site indexed. But the specific manual element-level schema, that's what gets your content understood.
And that really leaves just one last question that I want you to ask yourself about your own work. Right now, is your content just being listed and indexed, or are you taking the steps to make sure it is truly, deeply, and accurately being understood?